There are memories of my childhood that are timeless, memories I will never forget, like the time I caught the game-winning catch in my 4th grade All-Star Little League game, or the time I picked some daisies for Jamie, the girl down the street, and she rewarded me with my first kiss, or the night I graduated from middle school, and my parents were so proud of me that they gave me a key to the house and my very own ID with my name and address on it. They put the key and ID on a lanyard and put the lanyard around my neck. "You're getting older. You're going to be a man soon," said my dad as he patted my shoulder. My parents trusted me to get myself off to school and back again, all by myself. I felt like a real adult. I was so happy my face hurt from smiling. There are other memories from my childhood that I wish I could wipe from my mind altogether. When I was around 12 years old, I used to spend a lot of time in my church because my father was a minister. I would be in church every Sunday, sitting up extra straight in my pew and singing extra loud to set a good example for the rest of the kids. Our church was always low on money, and I figured if I tried hard enough, I could get the other kids to bring some of their friends, and we could get more people giving into the collection plate. Then maybe my dad wouldn't have to work so hard. I would always look for ways to help. So one day, when our church janitor broke his hip and couldn't clean up the place, I volunteered. Cleaning the church was a big undertaking, my dad said, and it was going to take all Saturday to do it, and he wouldn't be around to help. I told him not to worry, and that I was 12 years old now, and was old enough for the job. I had just moved up to the 7th grade and was ready for some adult responsibility. Early that Saturday, he dropped me off at the church, let me in, and showed me where the cleaning supplies were. When I was all set up, he left to go off on his visits with the old and sick members of our church. Like I said, the church was always low on cash, so I cleaned with the lights off to save some money. With only the outside sunlight and emergency lights to light my way. I wasn't worried or spooked as I went to this church every Sunday for my whole life. I knew every nook and cranny of the place. There was only one spot in the church that really creeped me out. The basement. The basement was one long hallway with 3 creaky doors. The doors were for the old Sunday school classes. All the rooms had their own separate door, but they were connected through a series of sliding panels, so classrooms could expand or contract depending on the size of the class. The last room had another door that led to the nursery, which had an exit leading outside. There weren't any windows in the basement, so the only light came from this red emergency exit sign. The entire basement hallway was colored red. Beneath the exit sign was a painting of Jesus. Blue Jesus. All you could see of him was his head, wearing a crown of thorns with blood dripping down his cheek. The rest of his face was a cold blue. The painting gave me shivers whenever I looked at it. I was on the other end of the hallway mopping the floor. I started on the far side so I could make my way back down the hall and take the left at the painting and make my way up out of the church. Like I said, there were no windows in the basement, so I could only hear the noises coming from the church or myself. I could hear everything, the swish, sploosh, swish of the mop, the hum of the humidifier, and the clink, clink, clink of the key and ID swinging back and forth around my neck. Then I heard something that wasn't right. It was moving through the church, and it was large, and it was shuffling closer and closer. Shh-tum, shh-tum, shh-tum. The noise sent a chill up my spine. The sound repeated for what felt like an eternity. The whole time my mind reeled in fear, imagining what horror lay around the corner. Suddenly I saw a figure covered in dark, matted hair move into view. He was about 20 feet away from me at the end of the hall. The red emergency exit sign beamed down on him from above, and the painting behind him outlined his figure in a ghostly blue. I was frozen solid. My mind was blank, and I was transfixed. In an instant, his head shot towards me, and his yellow bloodshot eyes pierced through me on the spot. His white, pasty skin shone through the darkness like a glowing skull. I screamed and felt a warm wetness drip down my right pant leg. He lurched towards me. I remained frozen for another instant until my wet pant leg turned cold and I snapped out of my trance. The mop fell out of my hands and I bolted to the door on my right. I threw it open and slammed it behind me. I could already hear him coming, though, coming closer down the hallway. Quicker than before. Shunk thunk, shunk thunk, shunk thunk. The room before me contained a miniature circular wooden table surrounded by 8 matching toddler-sized chairs. I ran for the sliding wall panel and pulled the handle. A cloud of dust billowed into the air. The classrooms in the basement were barely ever used, so apparently the previous janitor didn't even bother cleaning them. I threw myself into the opening and to the next classroom and pulled the panel closed. Bang! The sound of the first classroom door slamming shut shocked me. I fell violently to the ground. My chin smacked the cold linoleum floor and my teeth bit down on my bottom lip. I scrambled up as quickly as I could. I tasted blood. The man was in the room next to me and moving closer. I reached for the second sliding panel and made my way through. I tugged at the panel to close it, but it wouldn't budge. I saw the man throw open the first panel, and he was in the second classroom. I screamed again and ran for the nursery. There was a door to the outside in the nursery. I could get out. I pushed open the nursery door. Old stuffed animals and toys littered the shelves. A happy portrait of Noah and his pairs of animals painted on the walls. A whiff of mold and what smelled like wet leaves filled my nostrils. There weren't any families with babies in our congregation, so no one must have been in here for months. I didn't care. I could see the door to the outside. I reached the door and pushed down on the panic bar. It didn't budge. I pushed harder. It didn't move. Blood rushed through my body, and I felt a plunging feeling in the pit of my stomach. Trapped. I heard the man trip on a chair in the classroom next door, and I heard a loud curse. I looked around and saw the open bathroom door and ran for it. I couldn't see inside of it, and I knew it couldn't get me out, but it would keep me safe from him for a few seconds more. I closed the bathroom door behind me and turned on the lights, and oh, God! The smell was what hit me first. Wet earth and urine and his animal musk. Brown leaves and dirt lined the floor. There was a pile of newspapers, tattered clothing, and torn-up stuffed animals and dolls lumped in the corner. Panic took me and I shook. I fell back and the door swung open behind me. My eyes fell upon the unmoving door to the outside. I had to try again. I had to. Hitting, pushing, screaming. Nothing. I looked over my shoulder and he was there, in the far side of the room. His breathing was heavy, and as he limped forward, his smell drew closer. I groped around for something to defend myself with, but couldn't find anything but soft children's toys. Reaching more, my fingers brushed against something cold and round and hard. I lunged for it, but my neck! Something was choking me. I couldn't get a hold of the ball, and something was choking me. My vision got darker as the smell crept closer. Oh, God! Oh, God! I lunged for the ball. Crack! The weight around my neck snapped, and I was free. I lunged at it, and I threw the ball as hard as I could. It connected with his stomach. He fell down in a slump and let out a terrible groan. I was up, and I ran past him out of the nursery. The darkness and the blood pumping in my head blinded me, but I ran on anyway. Bursting out into the sunlight, I could smell fresh air. My legs burned and tears streamed down my face, but I ran on. I ran all the way home. Finally, I collapsed on my parents' front porch, pounding on the door. My mother opened it, gasped, and pulled me into her arms. Eventually, I caught my breath and told her everything that happened. She called the police. I cried for so long. After a time, she ran me a bath, dressed me in clean pajamas, and got me some food. My dad came home just after the police arrived. They searched the church but couldn't find the man. The police asked me a lot of questions, and I answered most of them the best I could. The police left, and my father took me up in his arms and carried me off to bed. He laid me down and tucked me in. He hadn't put me to bed in years. "I'm sorry," he said, and I could see tears in his eyes. I hugged him and cried along with him. "Good night, son, and try and get some sleep," he said. He clicked off the light and closed the door. My head hit the pillow and I tried to sleep, but the day kept replaying in my head. I just wanted to forget. The man, his yellow eyes, his smell, my neck, the choking. But he was on the other side of the room when that happened. When I felt that tugging, it wasn't him. My lanyard. It must have gotten caught in the panic bar. That's what was keeping me pinned. I felt that plunging feeling in my stomach again as I realized that the police searched all over that church. They would let my parents know if they had found my lanyard with my house key and ID on it. It had my name and address, too. But if they didn't find it, then he must have found it. That man must have found it. He knows my name. He knows where I live. And he can get in.